I woke up early on Thanksgiving morning, excited to cook the traditional meal for my son Thomas, his wife Amber, and my grandchildren Jack and Lily. Instead, I discovered a note on the kitchen counter explaining they had left for a surprise Hawaii vacation without me. The house felt eerily empty. No turkey thawing, no excited grandchildren, just silence. I found their boarding passes in the trash. They had left at midnight while I slept. Betrayal stung sharper than I ever imagined possible. 6 months ago, at age 67, I sold my home of 30 years. The decision wasn't easy, but Thomas convinced me it made perfect sense. His growing family needed more space, and I was rattling around in a house too big for just me after his father passed away 3 years ago. "Mom, we want you with us," Thomas had said, his arm around my shoulder as we stood in my garden for the last time. "The kids need their grandma, and with both Amber and me working such long hours, having you there would be a godsend." It seemed like the perfect arrangement. I would contribute $175,000 from my house sale toward their mortgage, move into their newly renovated basement suite, and help care for 12-year-old Jack and 9-year-old Lily after school. Thomas promised to add my name to the deed, making me part owner of the property. After all, family takes care of family. The first few months were wonderful. I cherished the early mornings with Jack and Lily, preparing their breakfasts and walking them to the bus stop. Afternoons were filled with homework help, baking sessions, and the everyday magic of watching my grandchildren grow. I felt useful, loved, needed. But looking back now, as I stood in the empty kitchen on Thanksgiving morning, I could see the signs I'd desperately ignored. 3 weeks ago, I'd entered the living room to find Thomas and Amber huddled over their laptop. They slammed it shut when I appeared. "Just checking some work stuff," Thomas had mumbled, but the guilty glance they exchanged told a different story. Last week, I overheard Amber on the phone in the laundry room. "She has no idea," she'd whispered. "It's all arranged." 2 days ago, Thomas had asked strange questions about my plans for the holiday weekend. "You'll be okay on your own for a bit if needed, right, Mom? You've always been so independent." I'd nodded, assuming he meant a quick trip to the store or visiting a friend. Now, with trembling hands, I opened their trash folder on the shared family computer. There it was, confirmation emails for 4 round-trip tickets to Honolulu. Departure, November 23rd, 11:59 p.m. Return, November 28th. They'd been planning this for months. My heart pounded as I clicked through to Thomas's social media account. There it was, posted just 3 hours ago, a smiling airport selfie of the 4 of them, captioned, "Finally, a real family vacation. Just as family time, no distractions." The implication was clear. I wasn't family, I was a distraction. With growing dread, I searched further and found a receipt from their joint account. The total for the Hawaiian getaway was $32,000, almost exactly matching a withdrawal from my savings account that Thomas had helped me make last month for what he called house repairs. My knees buckled as I sank into a kitchen chair. The refrigerator hummed in the background, still full of the turkey I'd purchased, the potatoes I'd planned to mash, the cranberries I'd intended to cook into sauce. All the fixings for a Thanksgiving meal that would never happen. In the pantry, I found Lily's school notebook, left behind in their hasty departure. Flipping through it absently, I froze at a page dated 2 weeks ago. "I'm excited about our secret trip," she had written in her childish handwriting. "Mom says not to tell Grandma because it's just for our real family." The final blow came when I discovered Amber's journal, carelessly left in the bathroom drawer. "Having the old lady always around is suffocating," she had written. "Thomas finally agrees we need space. Hawaii can't come soon enough." The old lady. After 6 months of cooking their meals, cleaning their house, raising their children, and contributing my life savings, that's all I was to them. The shock gave way to a hollow emptiness that settled in my chest as I wandered through the silent house. Outside, neighbors were welcoming family members, carrying dishes of food into homes filled with laughter. Inside, I sat alone at the kitchen island, my hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. I picked up my phone and called the only person I knew would answer on Thanksgiving morning. Dorothy, my best friend of 40 years. "They did what?" Dorothy's voice rose in disbelief as I explained the situation. "Kari, that's not just unkind, that's cruel. I keep thinking maybe there's some explanation," I whispered, though I knew there wasn't. The explanation is that your son and his wife are selfish, entitled people who've been using you, Dorothy said firmly. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Do? I repeated. Yes, do. You can either sit there feeling sorry for yourself until they get back, ready to accept whatever flimsy excuse they offer, or you can take action. Dorothy's words cut through my fog of hurt. She was right. This wasn't just about a forgotten holiday invitation. This was about months of deliberate deception. About using me for childcare and financial support while planning to exclude me from their real family. I'm not staying here, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Good, Dorothy replied. I'll be over in 20 minutes. While waiting for Dorothy, I decided to gather important documents I would need. In Thomas's home office, I opened the filing cabinet where we had stored the paperwork from when I moved in. Among the folders was one labeled House Deed. My fingers trembled as I opened it, already sensing what I would find. The deed listed only 2 names, Thomas and Amber Williams. Despite his promise, my son had never added me to the property. I sank into Thomas's office chair, my legs unable to support me. This betrayal went deeper than I had imagined. I wasn't just an inconvenient presence they wanted to vacation without. I was someone they had deliberately deceived about my own financial security. Digging further, I found bank statements showing suspicious transfers from joint accounts Thomas had helped me set up. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $700 there, then larger sums as time passed. By my quick calculation, they had siphoned nearly $65,000 beyond the original $175,000 I had willingly contributed. When Dorothy arrived, her expression shifted from sympathy to outrage as I showed her what I had discovered. This isn't just inconsiderate, Kari, she said grimly. This looks like elder financial abuse. It's a crime. Thomas wouldn't. I began, but stopped myself. The evidence was right in front of me. Dorothy took a seat beside me at the kitchen table. Remember Linda from our church group? Her daughter pulled something similar. Moved her in, took her money, then tried to push her out. What happened? I asked. Linda fought back, got a lawyer, got her money back. Dorothy squeezed my hand. You need to call Nancy. Nancy Porter had been my attorney during my husband's estate settlement. I hesitated only briefly before dialing her number. To my surprise, she answered. Family emergency keeping me in the office today, Nancy explained. What's going on, Kari? I explained the situation as concisely as I could. I can see you in 2 hours, Nancy said. Bring any documentation you've found. And Kari, don't touch anything else in that house. We need to document everything exactly as it is. After hanging up, I made another difficult decision. I'm calling a moving company, I told Dorothy. I need to get my personal belongings out of here before they return. On Thanksgiving? Dorothy raised an eyebrow. Emergency services charge extra on holidays, but I don't care. I'm not spending another night in this house. 3 moving companies later, I found one willing to come out on the holiday for triple their usual rate. I didn't hesitate to agree. While waiting for the movers, Dorothy and I continued gathering evidence. In Amber's desk, we found a notebook detailing their scheme. Mom's room conversion plans. Start after Hawaii trip. They had intended to renovate my bedroom into a home gym once they returned, effectively eliminating my space in the home I had helped pay for. The most painful discovery came when Dorothy checked the trash bins in the garage. There, discarded among empty paint cans and broken toys, were the scrapbooks I had lovingly created documenting Thomas's childhood. Every school photo, every sports medal, every handmade Mother's Day card, thrown away like meaningless garbage. I held those water-damaged memories in my hands and felt something harden inside me. This wasn't just about Thanksgiving or a vacation. This was about years of taking me for granted, culminating in calculated financial exploitation. With shaking hands, I called my bank and canceled the joint credit cards I shared with Thomas. Then I called the credit bureaus to place a fraud alert on my accounts. By the time the moving truck arrived, I had already laid the groundwork for financial separation. The moving truck arrived at 11:30 that morning. Skip and Dale, the 2 movers, looked uncomfortable when I explained the situation. You're telling me your own family left you alone on Thanksgiving and took off to Hawaii with your money? Skip asked, his weathered face creasing with concern. I nodded, embarrassed to admit how thoroughly I'd been duped by my own son. My ex-wife pulled something similar with her mother, Dale said, removing his cap. Ma'am, we're going to take extra good care of your things, and we're not charging you the holiday rate. That just ain't right. Their kindness nearly broke me, but I held myself together. There would be time for tears later. Right now, I needed to focus on the practical matters at hand. We started with my bedroom, packing clothing, personal items, and the few pieces of furniture that were truly mine. As we worked, my phone buzzed with a text message from Jean, my next-door neighbor. Kari, is everything okay? Saw Thomas and family leaving with suitcases last night. Now there's a moving truck at your house? I hesitated before responding truthfully. Not okay, Jean. Thomas took off to Hawaii without telling me, using my money. I'm moving out. John's response came quickly. Coming over now. Within minutes, Jean appeared at the door, still wearing her apron. I knew something was off when I saw them loading up the car at midnight, she said. They were being so quiet, like they didn't want to be noticed. Amber was wearing some fancy jewelry I'd never seen before. My stomach dropped. What kind of jewelry? A distinctive pearl necklace with a gold clasp. And some rings. One had a large blue stone. Those are my mother's pearls, I whispered, and her sapphire ring. Family heirlooms I'd been saving to pass down to Lily when she's older. Jean pulled out her phone and showed me a picture she'd snapped of the family leaving. There was Amber, clearly wearing my mother's pearl necklace and rings that had been stored in my jewelry box. The theft of these irreplaceable family treasures hit me even harder than the financial betrayal. Money could eventually be recovered, but these were pieces of my history, my mother's legacy. I added this information to the growing file of evidence for Nancy. By the time we arrived at her office at 2 o'clock, I had documentation of the house deed deception, bank transfers, discarded personal items, and now stolen heirlooms. Nancy listened intently, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she leaned forward. Kari, what's happened to you is not just morally reprehensible, it's legally actionable. We have evidence of fraud, financial exploitation of an elder, and theft. I can file emergency motions today to freeze accounts and begin the process of recovering your assets. Can it really be done on Thanksgiving? I asked. Nancy nodded. I have a judge who owes me a favor, but first we need to complete a full accounting of everything taken from you. For the next hour, Nancy and I meticulously documented every financial contribution, every unauthorized withdrawal, every personal item taken or destroyed. The total was staggering, nearly $240,000 in money and assets. There's something else, Nancy said, her expression grim. We should report this to the police. Elder financial abuse is a criminal offense in this state. I hesitated. He's still my son. A son who stole from you and abandoned you on Thanksgiving, Nancy reminded me gently. Kari, if we don't establish a legal record now, it will be much harder to recover your assets later. Reluctantly, I agreed. Nancy made a call to Detective Frank Patterson, who specialized in financial crimes and elder abuse. He agreed to meet us at the police station at 4 o'clock. Meanwhile, Skip and Dale had finished loading my belongings into their truck. Where should we take your things, ma'am? Skip asked. Before I could answer, Dorothy stepped in. She's staying with me. I have a guest house that's sitting empty. I started to protest, but Dorothy silenced me with a look. It's already decided, Kari. You need somewhere safe right now, and I need someone to help me eat all this Thanksgiving food I've prepared. By late afternoon, the movers had transported my belongings to Dorothy's guest house, a charming one-bedroom cottage behind her main home. As they unloaded the last of my possessions, Dorothy's phone rang. Her expression darkened as she listened. That was Patty from across the street, she told me after hanging up. Thomas's friend Greg just drove by your house very slowly, taking pictures when he saw the moving truck. They know something's up. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. They're checking up on me. Which means they never trusted you to begin with, Dorothy said firmly. All the more reason you're out of there now. At the police station, Detective Patterson listened carefully to my story, examining the evidence Nancy and I had compiled. Mrs. Williams, based on what you've shown me, we have clear evidence of financial exploitation, he said. I'm going to open a formal investigation immediately. In the meantime, I suggest you secure any remaining assets they don't have access to. I thought of my safe deposit box at First National Bank. It contained my birth certificate, passport, and a few remaining pieces of family jewelry. I need to change the access permissions on my safe deposit box, I realized aloud. Thomas is currently authorized to access it. Do that first thing tomorrow morning, Detective Patterson advised. And Mrs. Williams? Don't respond if they contact you. Let everything go through your attorney from this point forward. As we left the police station, my phone pinged with a notification from my security system. Someone had entered the house. Checking the app, I saw it was Greg, Thomas's friend. He was clearly searching for something, or someone. They're having their friends spy on me, I said, showing Dorothy and Nancy the live feed. That seals it, Nancy said grimly. We're filing for a restraining order first thing tomorrow morning. That night, in Dorothy's guest house, I sat on an unfamiliar bed, surrounded by hastily packed boxes. For the first time since discovering the note that morning, I allowed myself to cry. Not just for the Thanksgiving that never was, but for the years of trust that had been betrayed, for the son who had become someone I no longer recognized. But beneath the grief, I felt something unexpected beginning to grow. Resolve. Thomas and Amber had underestimated me. They thought I would remain their docile, grateful mother and grandmother, quietly accepting whatever scraps of affection and respect they deigned to offer. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. The day after Thanksgiving dawned bright and clear. I awoke in Dorothy's guest house feeling something I hadn't expected: relief. Despite the betrayal and uncertainty, there was a strange freedom in having the truth exposed. Dorothy knocked on my door at 7, bearing coffee and fresh cinnamon rolls. "Ready for battle?" she asked, settling into a chair across from me. "More than ready," I replied, surprising myself with my conviction. We started the day at First National Bank, where I met with Scott Williams, the branch manager who had handled my accounts for years. "Mrs. Williams, I'm deeply concerned by what you're describing," Scott said after I explained the situation. "Let's review all your accounts immediately and secure everything we can." For the next hour, Scott helped me close joint accounts, remove Thomas as an authorized user on my credit cards, and change the access permissions on my safe deposit box. When we examined my account history in detail, a disturbing pattern emerged. Small withdrawals made regularly over 6 months, always just below the threshold that would trigger a notification. "This looks like a calculated effort to drain your accounts gradually," Scott observed. "Have you discussed this with the authorities?" "Yes, and with my attorney. We're building a case." "Good. I'll prepare a full financial report documenting these unauthorized transactions. And Mrs. Williams, I'm adding a special alert to your accounts. Any attempted access by Thomas or Amber will be declined and reported to security." My next stop was Nancy's office, where she had already prepared emergency motions to freeze Thomas and Amber's assets pending investigation. "Judge Harriman signed these this morning," Nancy said, showing me the court documents. "Thomas and Amber won't be able to access their main accounts or sell any property until we sort this out." "Will that affect the children?" I asked, still concerned for Jack and Lily despite everything. "They'll still have access to a reasonable amount for living expenses," Nancy assured me. "We're not trying to punish the children, just prevent further financial misconduct." As we discussed next steps, Nancy's phone rang. After a brief conversation, she looked at me with surprise. That was Wendy Collins. "Says, she's your cousin?" "Second cousin," I corrected. "We're not close, but she owns the property adjacent to my family's old lake house in Wisconsin." "Well, she's calling because Thomas contacted her last week trying to sell your family's lake house. He claimed you had authorized him to handle the sale." My blood ran cold. The lake house had been in my family for 3 generations. Though small and in need of repairs, it held countless memories and was technically still in my name, though I hadn't visited in years. "I never authorized any sale," I said firmly. "Wendy suspected as much, which is why she reached out to you." She said something felt off about the whole situation. This new revelation added another layer to Thomas and Amber's betrayal. They hadn't just stolen from my present, they'd tried to sell off pieces of my past. By mid-afternoon, we had filed additional legal complaints and secured temporary protection for my remaining assets. Dorothy suggested we stop for a late lunch at Maggie's Diner, a local favorite we had frequented for years. As we settled into a booth, I noticed several acquaintances casting curious glances our way. Finally, Martha Jenkins, the owner, approached our table. "Carrie, honey, is everything all right? There's all sorts of talk going around town." "What kind of talk?" Dorothy asked protectively. Martha looked uncomfortable. "Well, Amber's been telling people for months that you've become difficult, that you're showing signs of confusion and making poor decisions. Some folks are saying you had some sort of breakdown yesterday and moved out suddenly." Anger flashed through me. "That's what she's been saying? That I'm mentally incompetent?" Martha nodded sadly. "I never believed it for a minute. You're sharp as a tack, always have been. But Amber can be mighty convincing when she wants to be." This explained so much. Why some church friends had become distant, why invitations had dwindled. Amber had been systematically undermining my reputation, perhaps laying groundwork to justify taking control of my finances. "Martha, I appreciate you telling me this," I said. "The truth is, Thomas and Amber have been taking my money, and yesterday they left for Hawaii without me, using funds they took from my accounts." Martha's eyes widened. "On Thanksgiving? After all you've done for those children?" Word spread quickly through the diner. By the time we finished our meal, 3 different people had stopped by our table to offer support and share their own stories about Amber's manipulative behavior over the years. "She tried to get my Randy to invest in some scheme last year," said Glenda from the garden club. "When he refused, she spread rumors that his business was failing. And she told the PTA that my daughter wasn't really allergic to peanuts, just seeking attention," added Susan, a school nurse I'd known for years. "We had to get a doctor's note to make them take it seriously." A pattern was emerging of long-term manipulation and deception that went far beyond my situation. Each story strengthened my resolve to stand my ground. That evening, Dorothy and I were reviewing documentation when her phone rang. It was Detective Patterson. "Mrs. Williams, we've uncovered something concerning in our preliminary investigation," he said when I took the call. "There appear to be credit accounts opened in your name that you may not be aware of." "What kind of accounts?" 3 credit cards with high limits, all maxed out. The applications were submitted online using your personal information, but the contact email and phone number listed belonged to Thomas. Identity theft. My own son had stolen my identity to open fraudulent credit accounts. The detective explained that they had also discovered evidence linking Thomas to suspicious financial activities at his workplace, possible embezzlement to cover mounting personal debts. "How soon can you come to the station to make a formal statement?" Detective Patterson asked. "The sooner we document everything, the stronger our case will be." "First thing tomorrow morning," I promised. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Dorothy waited patiently as I processed this latest revelation. "They needed the Hawaii trip," I finally said, the pieces clicking into place. "They're in financial trouble, possibly legal trouble too if Thomas has been embezzling. They're planning to run." "What makes you say that?" Dorothy asked. "The lake house sale attempt. The identity theft. Taking family heirlooms that could be sold. They're gathering resources for something bigger than a vacation." I looked up at Dorothy, my mind racing. "I think they might be planning not to come back, at least not to this house. They might be planning to move away permanently." The thought of never seeing my grandchildren again sent a wave of panic through me. Despite everything Thomas and Amber had done, Jack and Lily were innocent in all this. They deserved better than to be dragged into their parents' web of deception and financial fraud. "We need to move faster," I told Dorothy, reaching for my phone to call Nancy. Whatever Thomas and Amber were planning, I was now one step ahead of them. The prey had become the hunter. 4 days after Thanksgiving, I woke to the harsh buzzing of my phone. Checking the screen, I was startled to see 24 missed calls, 16 from Thomas, 7 from Amber, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. The first voicemail set the tone. "Mom, where are you? We got back from our trip and you're not here. Call me immediately." Thomas's voice held no concern, only irritation. The messages grew increasingly frantic. "Mom, seriously, this isn't funny. Where are you and where is your stuff? We had a break-in. Someone's stolen Mom's things. I'm calling the police. Mom, if you've moved out, you need to tell us what's going on. This is ridiculous. Carrie, this is Amber. How dare you disappear like this? The kids are upset, and frankly, your behavior is completely irresponsible." Then came the pivot to desperate. "Mom, please call me back. There are some guys here looking for money. I don't know what to do." "Kari, If you're getting these messages, we have an emergency. Thomas is in trouble. We need your help right away. The final message, left at 3:17 that morning, revealed the true nature of their panic. Mom, please, I'm begging you. There are collectors threatening us. They say they'll take the house. I thought you'd be here to help deal with them. You've always fixed everything. Please call me. There it was, the real reason for their distress. Not concern for my well-being, but the realization that their financial safety net had disappeared. Thomas had expected to return from his lavish vacation to find me still there, ready to bail him out of whatever trouble he'd created. 24 missed calls, I told Dorothy over coffee. Not one of them asking if I'm okay or apologizing for leaving me alone on Thanksgiving. What are you going to do? Dorothy asked. Nothing for now. Nancy advised me not to contact them directly. Everything goes through legal channels from this point forward. Throughout the day, the calls continued. Thomas tried my landline, my email, even contacted mutual friends trying to locate me. By evening, Dorothy reported that he had driven by her house twice. He knows we're friends. It won't take him long to figure out where you are, she warned. Sure enough, at 7:30 that evening, Thomas's car screeched into Dorothy's driveway. From the window of the guest house, I watched my son storm toward the main house, Amber trailing behind him. Dorothy had anticipated this and invited Nancy and Detective Patterson to be present. When Thomas pounded on her front door, he found himself face to face, not just with Dorothy but with my attorney and a police detective. I couldn't hear the conversation from the guest house, but I could see Thomas's body language shift from aggressive to defensive. After 15 minutes, he and Amber returned to their car and left without attempting to approach the guest house. My phone rang almost immediately. It was Nancy. Thomas has been served with the legal papers, she reported. He's been informed that all communication must go through me, and that there's an ongoing investigation into financial exploitation and identity theft. How did he take it? I asked. About as well as you'd expect. Denied everything at first, then tried to claim you had agreed to all the financial arrangements. When Detective Patterson mentioned the fraudulent credit cards, he clammed up and asked for his attorney. And Amber? She's a piece of work, Nancy said dryly. Kept insisting this was all a big misunderstanding, that they'd planned to surprise you with a trip to Hawaii for Christmas, and that's what the money was for. Detective Patterson asked why they went without you for Thanksgiving then, and she had no answer. Later that evening, Detective Patterson called with an update. Mrs. Williams, we've obtained a search warrant for your son's financial records based on the evidence of identity theft. What we've found suggests this goes beyond family financial abuse. There are significant irregularities with his accounts at work as well. You mean the embezzlement you mentioned? Yes. I've been in contact with the financial officers at Midwest National Insurance where Thomas works. They've been investigating missing funds for several months. When I mentioned our investigation, they confirmed that Thomas is their prime suspect. He's been moving company funds through a series of shell accounts, then transferring them to offshore accounts. How much? I asked, hardly able to believe what I was hearing. Initial estimates suggest around $300,000, but they're still auditing. I sat down heavily on Dorothy's sofa. My son, the boy I had raised to value honesty and integrity, was not just a thief but potentially a felon facing serious prison time. There's something else, Detective Patterson continued. We found evidence they were planning to relocate permanently. There are emails about job opportunities in Mexico and inquiries about international schools for the children. So my instincts had been correct. The Hawaii trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a trial run for disappearing altogether. If I hadn't discovered their plan and taken action so quickly, they might have vanished with my money, my heirlooms, and my grandchildren. The next morning brought another surprise. My phone rang with a call from Jerry Simmons, Thomas's boss, and the chief financial officer at Midwest National. Mrs. Williams, I apologize for contacting you directly, but this is an urgent matter. The detective investigating your case shared some information that overlaps with our internal investigation. I understand, I said cautiously. We've frozen Thomas's accounts at work and secured his files. Based on what we found, combined with the information from Detective Patterson, we're prepared to file criminal charges. However, I wanted to speak with you first, given that he's your son. I appreciate the courtesy, Mr. Simmons, but I don't want special treatment for Thomas. If he's committed crimes, he needs to face the consequences. There was a pause on the line. "That's very principled of you, Mrs. Williams. Most parents in your position would be trying to protect their child." "I've been protecting Thomas his entire life," I said quietly. "Perhaps that's part of the problem." After hanging up, I sat with the weight of what was happening. My actions had set in motion consequences that would fundamentally alter my son's life, my grandchildren's lives, and my own. Yet beneath the sadness was a growing certainty that this intervention was long overdue. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Grandma, it's Jack. Mom doesn't know I'm texting you. Are you okay? We came home and all your things were gone. Dad is really angry and Mom keeps crying. They won't tell us what's happening." My heart ached for my grandson, caught in the middle of his parents' mess. I composed a careful reply. "Jack, I'm safe and okay. I had to leave because of some grown-up problems that aren't your fault. I love you and Lily very much, and I'll explain everything when I can. Please be good and take care of your sister." His response came quickly. "Dad keeps saying you stole from us, but that doesn't make sense. You always give us things. I'm scared, Grandma." I showed the message to Nancy, who advised me on how to respond without compromising the legal case. "Jack, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and say things that aren't true when they're upset. Focus on your schoolwork and being kind to Lily. I promise we'll see each other soon." I didn't know if that promise was one I could keep, but I needed to offer some hope to a confused 12-year-old boy whose world was imploding. That afternoon, news came that Thomas's employer had formally filed embezzlement charges. By evening, local news stations were reporting that a senior insurance executive was under investigation for financial crimes. Though they didn't name Thomas, it wouldn't take long for connections to be made. My phone's missed call count continued to climb as Thomas grew increasingly desperate. The restraining order prevented him from approaching me directly, but he tried every indirect method he could think of. Mutual friends, distant relatives, even our family doctor, attempting to establish contact. Each failed attempt made one thing increasingly clear. Thomas had never expected me to fight back. He had counted on my maternal love to overcome any hurt, on my forgiveness to erase any transgression. He had anticipated tears and distress, perhaps even anger, but not strategic action, not legal consequences. He had fatally underestimated me, seeing only a vulnerable old woman, not the resilient survivor who had weathered widowhood, career challenges, and life's many storms. In trying to exploit my perceived weakness, he had awakened a strength even I hadn't fully recognized. As Tuesday dawned, 5 days after the Thanksgiving morning that had changed everything, I prepared to meet with prosecutors from the district attorney's office. Today, I would give formal testimony that could send my son to prison. Dorothy found me in the guest house kitchen, staring into my coffee cup. "Having second thoughts?" she asked gently. "No," I said, realizing it was true. "I'm sad about what this means for all of us, especially the children, but Thomas and Amber made their choices. Now they have to face the consequences." Dorothy squeezed my shoulder. "That's my girl." The confrontation I had been both dreading and preparing for came sooner than expected. I was returning from a meeting with the district attorney when Dorothy called in a panic. "Thomas and Amber just pulled up outside. They're heading toward the guest house, and they look furious." "Call Detective Patterson," I instructed, my heart racing. "Tell him they're violating the restraining order." I pulled into Dorothy's driveway to find Thomas pounding on the guest house door, while Amber paced nervously behind him. Neither noticed my arrival until I spoke. "The police are on their way, Thomas. You're violating a legal restraining order." They whirled around. The son I had raised, always so carefully groomed and composed, looked disheveled and desperate. Amber's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her puffy eyes and drawn expression. "Mom," Thomas's voice cracked. "What have you done? They're saying I could go to prison." "You brought this on yourself," I replied, maintaining my distance. "Everything that's happening now is the consequence of choices you made." "Choices?" Amber's voice rose shrilly. "We take one family vacation and you destroy our lives?" "This isn't about a vacation," I said quietly. "This is about stealing my money, taking my heirlooms, attempting to sell my property without permission, and opening fraudulent accounts in my name. This is about 6 months of systematic financial exploitation." Thomas stepped toward me. "Mom, please. You know I was going to pay you back. It was just temporary. I got in over my head with some investments." Gambling debts aren't investments, Thomas, I said, watching his face pale. Yes, I know about that too. How did you… Detective Patterson is very thorough. He found the loan shark payments, the online poker accounts, all of it. Thomas's shoulders slumped. I can explain. The wail of police sirens cut him off. 2 patrol cars pulled up, followed closely by Detective Patterson's unmarked vehicle. 4 officers approached, hands near their weapons. Thomas Williams? One officer called out. Sir, you need to step away from Mrs. Williams immediately. You're in violation of a restraining order. What happened next shocked everyone. Instead of complying, Thomas turned to me with wild eyes. Mom, you don't understand. These people aren't just debt collectors, they're dangerous. If I don't pay them by tomorrow, they've threatened to hurt the kids. I need the rest of your money. It's the only way to keep us safe. Before I could respond, Amber broke down. Just tell her the truth, Thomas. There are no threats. You gambled away our savings, our retirement, even the kids' college funds. Then you stole from your mother and your company to cover it up. You need help, not more money to throw away. The raw pain in her voice suggested this was the first time she'd publicly acknowledged the depth of Thomas's problem. The officers exchanged glances, but maintained their positions. Sir, step away from Mrs. Williams now, the lead officer repeated more firmly. Thomas ignored him, his attention fixed on me. Mom, please. One more chance. I'll get treatment. I'll make it right. Don't let them take me away from my children. The mention of Jack and Lily pierced my heart. Where are they now? I asked. With my parents, Amber said quietly. They're devastated, confused. They need their father. They need their father to get help, I corrected. They need adults who will put their needs first, not use them as pawns. Detective Patterson approached carefully. Mr. Williams, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of elder financial abuse, identity theft, and embezzlement. You can come with us voluntarily, or we can place you in restraints. Those are your only options right now. Something seemed to break in Thomas. His shoulders slumped, and the desperate energy drained from his body. Without another word, he allowed the officers to lead him to the patrol car. Amber remained, tears streaming down her face. This is all your fault, she hissed at me. You couldn't just let it go, could you? You had to ruin everything. Amber, I said gently, Thomas has a serious addiction. He needs professional help, not enablers. The best thing you can do for your children now is to stop the denial and focus on rebuilding their security. Don't you dare lecture me about my children. You think you know what's best for everyone, but you've destroyed our family. As her voice rose, neighbors began to appear on porches and driveways. Among them was Pastor Mike from our church and several members of my garden club. Word had spread quickly about what was happening at Dorothy's house. That's enough, Amber, Pastor Mike said firmly, approaching us. Kari is the victim here, not the villain. Thomas made his choices. Amber turned on him furiously. You too? Has everyone in this town turned against us? No one has turned against you, I said, but the truth has come to light, and now there must be accountability. More community members had gathered. Friends from church, neighbors, people I had known for decades. Their presence formed a protective circle around me, a visible demonstration that I was not alone. Amber's parents' car pulled up. They stepped out, their faces drawn with worry and shame. We heard what happened. Amber's father, George, said quietly, We've come to take Amber home with us. I'm not going anywhere, Amber protested. This isn't over. It is over, her mother, Linda, said firmly. The police called us, Amber. They told us everything. We've seen the evidence. What you and Thomas did to Kari was unconscionable. But Mom… No buts. You're coming with us now. The children need at least one parent who's thinking clearly. As her parents gently but firmly led her away, Amber's facade finally crumbled completely. The sophisticated, manipulative daughter-in-law was gone, replaced by a frightened woman whose carefully constructed life was disintegrating. Detective Patterson approached me as the crowd began to disperse. Mrs. Williams, Thomas has asked to speak with you before he's processed. You're under no obligation to see him. I hesitated, torn between maternal instinct and self-preservation. What does he want? He says he wants to apologize, but honestly, it could be another manipulation. It's entirely your choice. After a moment's reflection, I nodded. I'll speak with him, but I want you present. At the police station, Thomas sat handcuffed to a table in an interview room. The sight of my son in custody brought a fresh wave of grief, but I maintained my composure as I took a seat across from him. You have 5 minutes, Detective Patterson told Thomas. Thomas raised his eyes to mine, and for the first time since this began, I saw genuine remorse. Mom, I'm so sorry, he whispered. I've ruined everything. Yes, you have, I agreed. The question is, what are you going to do now? He seemed startled by my response. Perhaps he had expected tears or recriminations. Not this calm inquiry. I don't know. They're saying I could face up to 15 years. That's a possibility, I acknowledged. But there are options, Thomas. If you cooperate fully, get treatment for your gambling addiction, and make restitution, the court might consider a reduced sentence. Hope flickered in his eyes. Would you? Would you speak for me? Tell them I'm not a bad person? I considered his question carefully. I'll tell them you're a good father who lost his way. I'll confirm that this behavior represents a dramatic departure from the values you were raised with. But I won't lie or minimize what you've done, Thomas. True healing begins with complete honesty. He nodded slowly. I understand. And Mom? I want you to know that Amber didn't know the extent of it. The gambling, the embezzlement, that was all me. She knew about taking your money for the trip, but not the rest. That doesn't excuse her behavior, but I appreciate your honesty, I said. Thomas hesitated, then asked the question that was clearly weighing on him most heavily. What about Jack and Lily? Will you still be part of their lives? They're my grandchildren, Thomas. I will always love them and be there for them, no matter what happens between us. Relief washed over his face. Thank you. As Detective Patterson indicated our time was up, Thomas made one final plea. Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I am truly sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right, I promise. Looking into my son's eyes, I saw the little boy who had once brought me dandelions and called them flowers, the teenager who had defended a bullied classmate, the young man who had held my hand at his father's funeral. Somewhere beneath the desperate, deceptive adult he had become, that person still existed. Prove it, I said simply. Not with words, but with actions. That's all I ask. As I left the police station, I felt a strange sense of peace settling over me. The confrontation I had feared had come and gone. I had stood my ground, spoken my truth, and maintained my dignity throughout. Whatever happened next, I would face it with the same strength and clarity. 6 months after that fateful Thanksgiving morning, I stood in the kitchen of my new home, a charming 2-bedroom cottage in a quiet neighborhood across town. The spring sunlight streamed through windows framed by curtains I had sewn myself, falling across a dining table set for 5. The journey to this moment had not been easy. Thomas had pleaded guilty to reduced charges of financial exploitation and embezzlement. With his full cooperation in the investigation and commitment to addiction treatment, he had received a sentence of 5 years, with possibility of parole after 2. It was far less than the maximum he had faced, but still a heavy consequence. Amber, while not charged criminally, had faced her own reckoning both with her family and with the community. Her parents had insisted on family therapy, where hard truths about her enabling behavior and material values had been confronted. My mother's jewelry had been returned, though Amber's initial denials about taking it had further damaged her credibility. The most challenging aspect had been maintaining my relationship with Jack and Lily. At first, Amber had tried to restrict my access to the children, blaming me for their father's incarceration. But with the support of her parents, who recognized the importance of keeping me in their grandchildren's lives, we had gradually established a new visitation routine. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my reflections. When I opened it, Jack and Lily burst through, enveloping me in enthusiastic hugs. "Grandma, we brought dessert," Lily announced, carefully holding up a slightly lopsided homemade cake. "It looks wonderful, sweetheart," I said, genuinely touched by the effort. George and Linda, Amber's parents, followed more sedately. "Amber will be along shortly," Linda explained. "She had a job interview this morning." This was new information. After losing the house, sold to repay Thomas's debts and my stolen funds, Amber had moved in with her parents. She had been resistant to finding employment, clinging to the lifestyle she felt entitled to. A job interview represented significant progress. "That's wonderful," I said sincerely. "What kind of position?" "Administrative assistant at the community college," George replied. "Not glamorous, but it's a start." As the children settled in the living room with the puzzle I had set out for them, I served coffee to George and Linda. Our relationship had evolved into an unexpected alliance, united by our shared love for Jack and Lily and our determination to create stability for them despite their parents' mistakes. "How was your visit with Thomas yesterday?" Linda asked quietly, mindful of the children in the next room. "Encouraging," I replied. "He's 6 months sober now. The prison's addiction counselor says he's making excellent progress. He's teaching a math class to other inmates working on their GEDs. George nodded approvingly. Teaching was always his strength. Before all this, before the gambling took over. The sound of another car in the driveway signaled Amber's arrival. There was a time when the prospect of facing my daughter-in-law would have filled me with dread, but that had gradually given way to a cautious hope for healing. Amber entered hesitantly, as she always did now. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. The woman who stood before me looked younger somehow, dressed simply in slacks and a blouse, her face free of the heavy makeup she had once hidden behind. "Hi, Kari," she said softly. "Sorry I'm late." "Not at all. I hear congratulations are in order. A job interview?" A small, genuine smile appeared. "It went well, I think. They said they'll let me know by Friday." "Fingers crossed," I said, gesturing for her to join us at the table. As we settled in for our now monthly family lunch, I observed the subtle changes in all of us. Jack, once so angry about his father's absence, had developed a new maturity and sense of responsibility. Lily had overcome her initial reluctance to visit me, the grandmother she had been taught to exclude from real family activities. George and Linda had shed their defensive protectiveness of their daughter, holding her accountable while supporting her growth. And Amber herself showed glimmers of the person she might become without the materialistic values and deception that had dominated her marriage to Thomas. After lunch, while the children helped Linda with the dishes, Amber approached me privately. "Can we talk for a moment?" she asked, her voice uncharacteristically tentative. We stepped out onto the back patio. The garden I had planted was beginning to bloom, a symbol of the new roots I was establishing. "I want to apologize again," Amber began. "Not just for Thanksgiving and Hawaii, but for all of it. For the way I treated you from the beginning. For teaching the children to see you as less important." I listened quietly, allowing her to continue. "When I married Thomas, I thought I was getting the perfect life. The handsome husband, the beautiful home, the social status. I didn't marry him for money exactly, but I did marry him for what I thought he could provide." She twisted her hands nervously. "When things started going wrong with his job, with our finances, I couldn't accept it. I couldn't face losing the image I'd created. And I was an easy target," I suggested gently. She nodded, shame evident in her expression. "You were. When Thomas suggested using your money, I justified it to myself, told myself you owed us for letting you live with us, for all we did for you. It was wrong, Kari. So wrong." "Yes, it was," I agreed, not to punish her, but because honesty was essential for healing. But acknowledging that is an important step. "I'm trying to be better, for Jack and Lily's sake. They deserve a mother they can respect." She hesitated. "Thomas and I are discussing divorce. He suggested it, actually. He says we're not good for each other, that we bring out the worst in each other. I think he's right. This news didn't surprise me as much as it might have once. Whatever you decide, the children will need both of you to put their interests first." "I know. That's why. That's why I wanted to ask if you'd continue these monthly gatherings, even after the divorce. The kids need family stability. They need you." 6 months ago, I couldn't have imagined Amber making such a request. That she now recognized the value I brought to her children's lives represented perhaps the most profound change of all. "Of course I will," I assured her. "Family isn't defined by legal documents or blood alone. It's defined by love, respect, and showing up for each other through the hardest times." Later, after everyone had left, Dorothy stopped by with a bottle of wine to celebrate what she called my renaissance. "6 months ago, you were shattered by betrayal," she reminded me as we sat in my garden. "Look at you now, New home, new boundaries, new relationship with your grandkids. Even Amber seems like a different person. Necessity is a powerful teacher, I said. None of us had the luxury of remaining the same after what happened. Are you still planning to start that support group? Dorothy asked. I nodded. The first meeting is next Tuesday. Reclaiming Your Power, Support for Victims of Family Financial Abuse. The community center donated the space, and Nancy is coming to provide legal information. What had begun as my personal trauma had evolved into a calling. Through my experience, I had discovered how common family financial exploitation actually was, particularly among seniors. The foundation I was establishing would offer resources, counseling, and legal guidance to others facing similar situations. You know what amazes me most about all this? Dorothy mused. That Thanksgiving morning could have destroyed you. Instead, it transformed you. And not just you, but Thomas, Amber, the children, everyone involved. That's the thing about rock bottom, I reflected. Once you hit it, you can either stay down or use it as a foundation to build something new. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over my new garden, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for the betrayal and pain, but for the strength I had discovered within myself, the authentic relationships that had emerged from the wreckage of false ones, and the wisdom I had gained about what truly constitutes family. The old Kari would have remained silent, accepting disrespect and manipulation to maintain peace and proximity to her grandchildren. The woman I had become understood that real love required truth, boundaries, and sometimes difficult consequences. Thomas would eventually be released from prison. Jack and Lily would continue to grow and develop their own values. Amber might complete her transformation or slide back into old patterns. The future remained unwritten. But whatever came next, I would face it with the knowledge that I was not defined by what others took from me, but by what I chose to give, to stand for, and to create. The empty house I had discovered that Thanksgiving morning had led me to build a fuller life than I had ever imagined possible. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that involved standing up to family members? I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love the most, but as my story shows, those boundaries can lead to unexpected healing and growth. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and begin again.